Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Smee here, and today we're going to be taking a look at OG Yuragi's Alchemist. This is a hero that's been really popping up throughout EU pubs and doing quite well. It's also something I recently played a few times with a team I was standing in for Dog Champ in the Beyond the Summit tournament, and we did extremely well with this hero as well. Yuragi in this match absolutely pops off. His score was 11-0-14, a flawless performance in a very close match. A very close match. We'll take a look at his net worth. You can see he's on top, and you might be like, oh, he was winning the game. What do you mean it's a close match? He's Alchemist. Of course he's going to be ahead. But his teammates were quite behind, right? The Ember and the Venom were not doing well whatsoever, but he was able to stay on top, hit his timings. He goes a very cool build where he goes an Armlet into Radiance. Nothing too crazy, but I think the Armlet is honestly really good. I think it's very underrated, and I honestly think this hero, if it gets buffed next patch, will be one of the top carries of the patch, because honestly a lot of the other carries have been nerfed, right? Alch has been somewhat untouched for a while now. He did get nerfed quite hard in the past, which is why he fell off very hard, but I do believe this hero is going to make a comeback, especially with other carries being nerfed and with him potentially getting a buff on upcoming June 8th. And let's get into it. Also, I want to tell you guys that if you've been struggling with solo queue and you're looking to get to the next rank, I'm going to be able to help you. Like, literally, with the GameLeap website, I'm going to give you guys guides that are going to make it unbelievably clear on what you need to do. So if you've been stuck in the solo queue grind, you don't know what to do, and you want to become absolutely broken, but like actually you want to become much better at Dota, and you want to take it more seriously, the GameLeap website is going to help you do that. So click the link down below. I'm going to help you get to the next rank, and I'll see you there. Alright, so the first crazy play of the game is he levels Unstable Concoction at level 1. You heard me right, he takes his stun. So Alch's stun, you know, it's kind of a meh ability. The reason why it's obviously sort of a meh ability is because it has to charge. However, if it does charge, right, if it does reach 5 seconds, it will stun for 150 damage and 1.75 seconds, which is extremely good. One thing to note about the stun as well that did make it a much better level 1 ability, it was buffed to give you 5% movement speed at level 1 while you're charging it. This is pretty good because, you know, you can auto attack when you're charging Alch stun, right? And that's something to keep in mind because when you have an extra 15 movement speed, you'll see it goes from 305 to 320 when taking it out. That lets you chase down the majority of targets. Right, this is a huge buff. I don't think people realize how big of a deal this actually was when he got 5% at level 1 and then 20% at max. The hero runs at haste movement speed in the mid to late game when charging Concoction. And so this really was a huge change to the hero that allows you to be a much better laner. You can auto attack people much more in Acid and simply get much more kills out of it, or many more kills out of it. And yeah, it really does come into play. It's not one of those minor buffs. It really was a major buff. We'll see in the laning stage as well as we literally get into the first creep wave, he's going to use the ability quite frequently. Especially when you have something like Coddle in lane, or Bane, or Undying, any sort of hero that can put a lot of pressure, this stun build at level 1 is incredibly good. Now you need to keep in mind that it's very dangerous to use the ability. If you don't throw it, it's going to pop on yourself, so make sure the enemy is in vision and you can chase them before you do it. And we'll see in this upcoming clip here, he's actually going to be able to get first blood with Concoction. Lion overextends pretty hard. He knows that Lion had already committed his stun, and as a result, he goes for a 2.5 second remaining on the stun duration. Stun secures the first blood for his Coddle, and that's a huge start to the lane. Now, just to be clear, this is not something I'd recommend doing every lane. Like, I really do want you guys to be very careful about taking Concoction. The reason why is, against certain lanes, you're not really going to be able to use it. I mean, to be fair, you could always just throw the stun to, like, help secure a range creep, you know what I mean? You can throw it at the enemy and then CS the creep, or deny a creep. So it always is going to have its use case, but the thing is, you have to be very careful where if you have a weak position 5, let's say you have something like a Rubik, okay, and he's not doing anything to help you, or he's doing minimal, even though Rubik can actually do okay, you're just gonna have stun, right? In that case, you're better off having your Grieval's Greed or even Acid. Acid is a really nice ability in difficult lanes because you can kind of just chuck it down on the creep wave and it's very hard for them to trade into you, right? So keep in mind, depending on your lane, sometimes you should actually have a point in Acid at level 1 or Grieval's Greed at level 1 instead of the Concoction. Look at this clip here. This is probably the most insane clip of the lane. Really, this is an insane clip. He gets gone on in the trees, 2v1, full HP heroes, look what happens. Now, to be fair, Brewmaster is not the best trading hero based on stats, and Lion has 0 armor, but he just completely beats down the Lion. Brewmaster tries his man up a little as well, and it's actually a pretty favorable trade, all things said and done, considering how bad that actually started. So it goes to show how good Alch is actually trading with this 1-1-1 skill build. And I would recommend going 1-1-1 almost every single lane. It is pretty intense in mana, so you are going to have to rush a stick every single game if you want to get away with this. If you do not buy the stick, you will not be able to make this build work. You'll simply run out of mana. And if you are going to also go this build, do not acid spam the creep wave. Okay, do not acid spam the creep wave. The only reason why he's, for instance, at minute 430 here, he's going to acid this wave is because there's literally no chance for aggression here, right? What I mean by that is the lane is like literally under the enemy's tower. So what he's doing is he's pushing it in because he doesn't want to be here, right? So he is going to acid in the lane. On top of that, he has a coddle, and as a result, the 1-1-1 makes a lot more sense, right? But once again, if you do not buy stick, or you think it's the worst stick lane of all time, then you do not have to go 1-1-1. You can put 2 points in acid instead, and instead just play for CS. You can just shove in the lane with acid and rinse repeat over and over again, and it's fine. On top of that, do not, and I repeat, do not rush Greevil's Greed. Do not max it, please. It's horrible. Do not max Greevil's Greed. Max Acid Spray. Greevil's Greed scales like garbage. It only gives you 3 more GPM, or whatever it is called, gold, per creep CS when it's maxed. So it barely is better. And Acid gets much better. Okay, it goes up in DPS, armor reduction, and radius. So please, do not make this mistake. I see people literally maxing Greevil's Greed. You're throwing your game. It's not good. It doesn't make you much more rich. It actually makes you way more poor because your acid sucks. Next thing to note is he goes Soul Ring every game. You kind of have to on this hero, otherwise you will literally not have mana. But basically what you want to do before you use acid and before you use Chem Rage, make sure you pop your Soul Ring, get the value out of it. You do need to use the Soul Ring practically off cooldown to make sure that this hero has mana, because yes, acid is a very mana intensive ability. Honestly, you have to spam Chemical Rage, so you do have some mana problems. Now, as the lane progresses, if you happen to be on Dire, what you can do is actually use this cheeky little Acid Spray if it's maxed out Acid Spray. Another reason to max out Acid Spray. But you can actually drag these camps together. Wow, look at these stacks. Shout out the coddle here. But yeah, you can drag both camps together if you position it properly. Basically, the acid should be somewhat in between 2 camps every single time you use it. There's almost no exception to this. To be fair, if you're on Radiant, it's much harder to do this, which is why Alch on Dire is significantly better. I would say almost always. I'm a huge fan of Dire Alch. Either way, you can see he has no problem getting aggressive, and that's kind of the nice thing about the build that he goes here. It's not some like Brown Boots Radiance garbage. Instead, he has like 16 armor, right? A wand, a soul ring, you know, phase boots active. He's got a chip vest now, which is like the best item you can get on this hero for early jungling. He's unbelievably tanky. They try to run at him here. It's not even close to dying. It's not even close. He's able to take out a concoction and finish off the brew here. And it goes to show that this build is really nice for a multitude of reasons. It makes you a much better laner because you're buying phase boots early. You're not greeding out for some stupid radiance or something like that. And on top of that, your armor is so high that physical damage is just not a threat to you. Really, the only real counter to Alch in the early game is Burst Magical, or catching him when he has Chemical Rage down. Frankly, that is the biggest nerf that this hero received. It used to have pretty high uptime on Chemical Rage. Now it's up less than half the time, which is pretty shitty. And so you gotta understand that when this ability is down, your hero really is trash. We'll get more into that in the mid game, because literally you need to tell your team in team fights that you don't have Chem Rage and that they need to chill, because your hero is useless without Chem Rage. But basically the farming rotations, I don't really want to cover it too much. I have so many videos on farming rotations, so if you want to get into advanced farming rotations, you can just look it up. You just type in GameLeap farming rotations. I'm sure there's plenty of things that will pop up. Or you can sign up to the website. I have plenty of things there as well. Either way, the main thing to understand is that your hero just needs to stay in the jungle. Like, you don't need to cross the river. You should not be pushing deep waves. You might be like, oh, but Speed, I thought I need to clear creep waves. It's like, yes, but as Alch, no. Because the thing is, the advantage of Alch is generally not the pressure you're going to put on the map, at least not early game. What it's rather going to be is your ability to hit stupid good timings and then win a team fight with those timings. You're going to sacrifice your team a little bit, but hopefully in the sacrifice of your team, you will get so farmed that it just doesn't matter. And we'll even see in this clip here, 13 minutes in, look how farmed he is. I mean, his net worth is unbelievable, right? He's 3-0 with 3 assists, which is not something you see every day. But look at this clip here. As I talked about, usually you would be dead. Absolutely. If he was rushing Radiance here, straight up dead. He's dead. There's no way he's not dead, right? He's absolutely dead. But instead, he gets off a big wand, gets off his armlet, and eats all of the damage. In fact, he didn't even come close to dying in the end. And he's just full HP. And so yeah, this build is honestly pretty nuts. Another thing to note is this hero is even when you get Radiance, you still should keep farming. Really, BKB is your main timing. A lot of people kind of get debated where they're like, I have Radiance, go fight. And you can fight with Radiance, you definitely can. Just I would say if you have the Radiance, try to take a fight on your own side of the map. I still wouldn't force, like I absolutely would not force a tier 1 with the Radiance. I would play chill, just kind of sit back, wait for things to happen, wait for the enemy to overextend, and go from there. I think a lot of people would make the mistake of being like, I have Radiance, let's force an objective. And then they just die. Like, that sounds like such a 3K thing. No offense, all my 3Ks. But it's just like, that's just what people do, right? They kind of get debated into like really, really bad fights or taking objectives when they don't have their BKB. And then they just die. Now, getting into your next item, it's going to be Blink. And the way you execute with Blink Dagger is you almost always try to take out a support. You can jump cores, as after all, it is still a... What is the stun when maxed out? I think it's like 3.5 seconds. A 4-second stun at max if you channel it for 5 seconds. Usually you're only going to stun them for about 3.5 to 3 seconds, which is obviously still extremely good. But at the end of the day, really what you're looking to do is find anyone you can burst. Do not overextend as well. You might be like, oh, why can't I overextend? I have BKB. It's because if you overextend, very often your BKB is going to get kited. So you can see in this team fight here, honestly, I think he blinks in a little bit too early, doesn't really get much value out of the stun. But to be fair, it does force out a very bad Naga song, right? This song doesn't really accomplish very much. I mean, it saves the lion, so I guess there's that. But the thing is he just immediately goes in this line, right? Pops his BKB, finds the Brute on the side, completely zones out the enemy, right? And that's really because he doesn't overextend. If he chases the enemy, they might not get this Brute kill, or the Brute kill would be much, much harder. Instead, he completely zones them all out with his BKB, secures the kill on the overextending core on the enemy's side, and goes back to farming. So one thing I do want to quickly show off is the discipline of Yuragi when going high ground here. Basically, a lot of people would overextend and die, so he finds this line pick off. It's a beautiful play, quick kill. He knows the enemy team doesn't have really a good stun outside of Lion, so if he goes on Lion and kills Lion, he's not going to get counter-initiated on, probably. But either way, he's going high ground here, and the big thing that he does well is he just throws out a casual concoction, just trying to get the enemy off of him, poking them down with the Radiance a little bit, but the big thing is he's not going to overextend. Chem Rage ends here, and as I talked about, this is kind of the downside of Valk. Your hero's pretty awful at sieging, because if you have to use Chem Rage to siege, you're probably not going to have it to fight. And so there really is a huge downside and a huge gap where good players can take advantage of it. So you got to be careful. And you can see he just blinks out. A lot of people might have blinked in. They'd be like, oh, I have BKB still. Right, go. But the thing is, you don't hit very hard, because Chem Rage, it does a couple of things. It gives you movement speed, so you chase people better. It gives you 100 HP regen, so you don't die. And then it lowers your base attack time, so your attack speed is drastically improved. So the hero becomes, it's not even close, right? Like, it's pretty easy to understand that Alk is just a different hero with Chem Rage, and so you gotta be very, very careful about what you're doing with your positioning. On top of that, as we'll see in this coming clip here, he's just so tanky, and this is why you gotta keep farming in between the fights. You shouldn't be so, like, anxious to end the game necessarily. Like, you just want to make sure that when you do get ganked, when you do get gone on, you're so tanky that you live. To be fair, he did get a beautiful glimmer here, but look at his survivability. Unbelievable. 40 armor almost, gets the BKB off, the overwhelming blink gives him a bit more HP, so he barely lives, gets off his concoction eventually, and just wins the fight. And it just goes to show, this is the power of Valk. You can really pick people off. You honestly are a good laner. Like, you are a good laner. Your hero, if you do take your stun, and you buy a stick, and your support buys a good amount of regen, your hero's a good laner. Like it is just a good laner. So honestly, I think this hero has a lot of potential. If it does get buffed in the next patch, I absolutely recommend you spam it. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website, where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.